Welcome back to our candidate forum. We are live at the Church of All Nations in Boca Raton. You are watching The Vote 2010, the race for governor. I'm Suzanne Boyd, news anchor for CBS 12, joined by my fellow moderator here, Pastor Mark Boykin, who is the pastor here at Church of All Nations. We just heard from candidate Bud Childs, and now in the hot seat we have Attorney General Bill McCollum. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Glad to be with you.
So your buddy backed out on us tonight.
Well, I'm a little surprised at that, but he's done something similar to that before, so the question that we have is, I'm running on my record, and he appears like he's running from his, but I'm ready to answer your questions, whatever they are.
Well, I just have a few questions, Governor. I'd like to, excuse me, Attorney General.
We'll take that slip too, Pastor. It's okay.
That was a Freudian slip.
I understand.
Anyway, you seem to be a bit more reticent about the Arizona law than your rival, Mr. Scott. It seemed like he came on the scene and it was almost a jump start to try to get his campaign going. And it seemed to me that you were a little more careful before you jumped out and started making all these promises of what you were going to do. Since then, you have come out in favor of an Arizona law like that in Florida, and I would like to ask a few questions about that, if I may.
Of course.
Have you really done the economics on this to understand what it would do in just the jobs alone if we were to begin what they're doing in Arizona, i.e. deportation? It seems to me Florida International University came out with a study that stated we would lose some $20 billion a year in Florida alone. So that sets us back even before we get started. If we begin deportation, Latino-owned companies are, I believe, 200 to 300,000. How would you answer that?
Well, first of all, I support legal immigration. I served on the Immigration Subcommittee in Congress for a number of years, and I believe that's the foundation of our society. The Arizona immigration law is amended. I want everybody to have the record clearly said. As it's been amended, I support the Arizona immigration law. Now, I am also in court defending it, its constitutionality right now from President Obama's attack. But let's talk about how we got there. The Arizona legislature passed a bill, and when it first passed that bill, it was a wide open bill that said when a police officer makes contact with somebody, they can check to see if they're illegal. I worried about that presenting a racial profiling problem, and I said, that's not a good law. As Attorney General of Florida, I know that's not a good law. But 1 week later, the legislature altered that. They amended it. And it now reads that when you stop, detain, or arrest somebody, and you're a police officer, then you're required to check to see if they're legal or not. Under Florida's current law, if you stop, detain, or arrest, you're permitted to check to see if they're illegal. They should be doing that. There's nothing wrong with requiring them to do that under those conditions. It doesn't mean that you're going to usurp the federal role. There's a lot of emotion in this. The federal government's not doing its job clearly in Arizona in order to protect and secure the borders, in order to enforce existing immigration law. We have not amended and done things we should to those laws over the years, but I want it to be clear. First of all, while I support legal immigration as opposed to illegal, I oppose amnesty in the form of a provision that would allow somebody to path of citizenship once they're here in this country illegally. But I do think that there are rules of the game, and I'm working currently on a provision for Florida that would not be exactly like Arizona's law, but it would be Arizona-like in certain respects.
Okay, I appreciate that you qualified that, but let me ask this question point blank. If you are governor, would you be willing to sit down with myself and leaders from the immigrant community to consider a path of residency to be allowed before drafting any Arizona type of law here in Florida? In other words, would you be willing, before you go in by executive order or by the legislators to draft some kind of law, would you be willing to sit with a contingency and proffer?
I'm ready to sit with you right now, Pastor. I'll be glad to do that. We're working on drafting something right now in my office, working with Representative Snyder, who's over from this coast. We're working on the first of maybe 2 or 3 stages provisions. I'd like to see the E-Verify law adapted better to our state. There are a number of things we can do. But look, I want to make it clear, too, we can't supplant what the failure the federal government is doing here in this case. They have their primary responsibility for immigration laws. But what Arizona has said, it's pretty clear, and I support the Arizona law as it is now amended. Happy to sit down with you and talk to you about why and what we can do to make sure that your fears and your concerns, and I can hear them in your voice, are addressed. There's no reason why we have to have that kind of misunderstanding about any law we pass in the state when I'm governor. We should not.
Well,
all right, let's move on to health care because he's only got a few minutes left. You have filed a lawsuit against the federal health care law. So tell me, what do you propose as governor for the millions of Floridians who don't have insurance right now, or for those Floridians who are about to get to the point where they can't afford it anymore?
Well, first of all, you're correct. I did 7 minutes after President Obama signed the Obamacare and health care bill into law. I filed a lawsuit to have it declared unconstitutional because I really think the individual mandate that says that just sitting in your chair in front of your TV set, you've got to buy a health insurance policy, there's no enumerated power in the Constitution. If you do that, the federal government's going to give you a penalty. It's wrong. I also think it's wrong on the count of the Medicaid part of that. The state budget of Florida, 27% of it today goes to Medicaid. One of the greatest problems we have is the increased enrollment, the increased eligibility to Medicaid, and the fact the state has pledged and committed years ago to make up so much of the money in the benefits that go out, that if we're going to see this tremendous increase they're taking from us, what does it mean for education? What does it mean for foster care? What does it mean for prisons and all the other things that we do? Now, as to health care, I'm first of all proud that the Florida Medical Association has endorsed me. The doctors are supporting me in this race for a reason. I believe in more choice among patients and doctors. I think that we need to have an opportunity to reduce the mandates that are in the current base policies in Florida. There are over 50 of them today. We probably should only have 10 or 12 or so, and the rest of them should be things that you could purchase, much like you would cable television as a menu. Add to that as you need them, not have a 30-year-old male have to buy a breast cancer insurance policy. It doesn't make any sense to me. And there are any number of things that we can do to make insurance more affordable. And remember, the cornerstone to this is quality, affordability, accessibility of health care. That's what the cornerstone of what health care should be. We've got a lot of work to do to make that happen. And oh, by the way, physical education in the schools, very important. Real PE exercise at every grade level. We need to set an example for the nation with that.
Council,
but how can I ask a follow-up to that really quick? How can our school districts afford PE when they're being forced to provide class size limits that they can't afford right now?
First of all, class size limit needs to pass. It's on the ballot this fall. We need to give more flexibility to the schools in that regard. In addition to that, with regard to PE, I chair a Healthy Florida Foundation, and we recommended to Governor Bush putting more PE back in the schools. We talked about it a lot. It's not a question of affording it. We need to first establish a model. Then we need to work. When we don't have a budget right now, we don't have a lot of money. We're going to have a $6 to $8 billion budget shortfall when I'm governor in Tallahassee. That's a huge amount. And I'm not going to raise taxes. We need to get jobs created in the state. We need to lower taxes, and we need to lower the regulatory burden on small businesses. And I've got a plan to create over 500,000 new jobs that Steve Forbes and I invented. So I'm not going to raise taxes in the state, but we do have a way to work with the private sector, with the YMCA, with other facilities that are there. I think we can work out a plan to put PE back into the schools, and gradually as the economy improves, we'll have the ability to pay for more of that than we do today.
Council, if I may ask, or if I may just interject kind of as a parenthetical thought here. We learned about an hour ago that your rival, Mr. Scott, would not be here. I was told, it seemed earlier in the week, that he was a bit reticent about coming. We talked to him. We had 3 confirmations, and I learned at 6:00 p.m. that he would not show up. I understand now in the moments before coming out here that this has happened at least 2 other times, and here's a man who claims that immigration is the centerpiece of his campaign while at the same time making money off of migrant workers. He has never answered the question concerning defrauding Medicare and Medicaid to the tune of $1.7 billion. I was hoping tonight that he would at least have a mea culpa, at least say, yes, we did it. He has failed to do it. And now we are learning more about the character of Mr. Scott. What I have just learned, we have already scheduled a press conference this coming week where we will actually be divulging information we have recently learned about the duplicity and the subterfuge of this man. And I know that you have gone, well, bear with me. I know this has been, you're going back and forth, but I would just like to ask, I know there seemingly has been bad blood. What is it? I don't understand. I'm truly confused that this has happened tonight, and I apologize to this audience that we made a promise that we could not keep.
Well, I don't bear any woe to Mr. Scott. I first met him at the debate I had in Miami earlier this week. We had a second debate Thursday night. He had originally said he would do 4 debates. He then said last week that he would not do the one that was going to be broadcast statewide with Leadership Florida and the Press Association. He did not meet the press after either of these 2 debates to answer their question. I think maybe he's gone to 1 editorial board, if that, in the state. And the reason I think is the case, it's very important. Character, leadership, honesty, integrity. Character is very important. I'm proud of my record. I have a long record of public service. Anybody can check it. Anybody can find out about it. What I've been saying for a number of weeks now is he's spending millions of dollars of their own money, over $40 million, trying to buy the governor's office in Florida, which I don't think should be for sale. In that process, he's been attacking my character, attacking my policies. I have not had the resources to respond to all of that. And in the process, he's also been masking the fact that, as you pointed out, when he was the CEO of Columbia HCA, he ripped off his company, the taxpayers, the seniors, the veterans, the sick people of this country for millions of dollars. It was a lot more in billions than that. Was a $1.7 billion criminal fine that they gave.
Okay.
Highest in U.S. history. Highest in U.S. history.
Let's get back to the issues. We're going to continue to talk to you about education and the economy when we come back for the lightning round. Attorney General Bill McCollum, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm looking forward to that. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Thank you very much.
Stay with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Still to come, candidate Brian Moore is up next. Stay with us.